fellow Falcoholics. What is up? Welcome to episode 176 of the Falcoholic Live, day 3, the final day of our Senior Bowl coverage, as the final day of practices was today, Thursday, for the Senior Bowl. It was an interesting setup because they sort of preemptively decided to cancel the outdoor practices and move them to an indoor facility that's directly adjacent to the stadium. I was not invited to those practices, along with, I would say, 90% of the other media. So instead, we had to watch the practices remotely. They had a video stream. It was also on ESPN, ESPNU. The quality of which was questionable, but we did get to see it. We did get to see a lot, obviously. There were plenty of observations to draw from that. And I'll be able to go back and look at that. I was able to DVR it too. Shout out to YouTube TV for that feature. So I can have a chance to look back at it. There won't be any clips coming from it, obviously, because I don't own the footage. I wasn't able to record it myself. So that no more footage, no more clips from today's practice. I still have plenty from yesterday that I'll be getting up there. I know you guys are hungry for those, but fingers crossed that the internet holds out. So far, so good. No hiccups yet. So we're just gonna keep plugging along and hope that everything continues on. Also see about getting some guests in here if they break free from their busy schedules. Might have some of the NBC Sports Edge guys coming on if they can get free. But let's go ahead and talk about today's practice, which, like I said, was indoors in the indoor facility, so they weren't affected by the weather, which, to be honest, wasn't super bad earlier. It actually probably would have been nicer than yesterday for much of the first practice, at least. And I think the biggest standout, in my opinion, was a receiver, actually. Khalil Shakir from Boise State, who hadn't had a bad week coming into today, but certainly had the most impressive day of maybe any player, in that he was sort of just the target for all three quarterbacks of the first team, which was Ritter, Carson Strong, and Kenny Pickett. All three of those guys just peppered Khalil Shakir with targets. They did a lot of red zone work today in practice, and Shakir was just dominating. He was finding ways to get open. He was putting guys on skates. He was making moves. He was going up and getting contested catches. I mean, he was doing it all. He's got a good frame. He's got great hands. I was really, really impressed with Shakir. And that's not a player I've had a lot of opportunity to watch yet, so he's definitely someone who's on my list now to get to, with a really impressive showing today. In terms of other guys from the first practice, running back Rachaad White out of Arizona State continued to be one of the best running backs here. If not for Dameon Pierce of Florida, who's sort of done everything every day, I would say that Rachaad White is right there. Behind him is probably the second best running back here at the Senior Bowl. But Rachaad White is very explosive. He's got great vision. Honestly, like today, he was out there following his blocks and being patient and scoring touchdowns like constantly because he was being patient. In the last couple of days, he was more putting on a show with his explosiveness and athletic traits. Today, he sort of flipped the script and showed that he has good vision, that he can be patient, and I think that was really good to see. So that's certainly a day 3 running back that could really rise up boards. Another running back also today was made my list as some of the biggest standouts on offense. Running back Tyler Batty from, I think it's Batty or Beatty from Missouri. He's a very good receiver. He was taking dump offs and churning out great yards off him. He's also gotten a lot better as a runner. He was used a lot more as a runner this year at Missouri, and he looked great. He's a smaller guy in terms of stature, but he looks like a little bowling ball. He kind of reminds me of Mike Davis, honestly, at his size and being a great receiver. So he's a guy certainly that could be an option on day 3 as a sort of complementary piece. On the defensive side, again, honestly, the defensive line just continued to dominate today. Once again, it was that unit that was sort of the king of the practices. Defensive tackle Perrion Winfrey from Oklahoma continued to sort of steal the show. for the national team, which is the team that practices first, coached by the Jets. Just destroyed people. I mean, that's sort of what he does. Just really impressed by him. I sort of went into it wondering if, either he or Fidarian Mathis would be more impressive, and I think Winfrey has sort of run away with it as the most impressive interior guy in terms of pass rushing. Travis Jones, the nose tackle out of UConn, continued to have a great week. Sort of a different type of player, but he showed off some moves. He showed off his explosiveness and, of course, his power and length we already knew about, and he continued to just dominate one-on-ones, which you can't block him one-on-one. That's not going to happen. Teams will probably double him because he's so big and strong, but he showed that what would happen if you tried to single block him, and it was not pretty for the opposition. Majai Sanders from Cincinnati was another guy from the early practices that I thought continued to have a good week. And I think he needed it considering his tape was sort of inconsistent. There's a lot of questions about how he could handle power, handle the run. I thought he looked very good. I thought that, he put on some good weight going into the Senior Bowl. But he carried it really well. He didn't look like he'd lost any of his explosiveness. He obviously showed off his great length, which has always been one of his better traits. And he played really hard, played with toughness, and I think he impressed a lot of people. So I think he has sort of answered a few of the questions about the power that was sort of lacking in his game, and I think that was a big thing for me. So that helped me feel a little bit more confident with him in the day 2 range in terms of being drafted. The other guy has been a standout all week that I haven't talked about as much because I haven't necessarily been watching the DBs as extensively, but safety Jalen Petre, I think it is, or Peter or something like that. I don't know. I almost worked up the courage to ask him. I saw him at the media breakfast, and I was just too worried about being embarrassed by saying it like really badly. But if anyone knows how to actually say his name, please let me know. It's actually spelled the same as the new Falcons running backs coach. I don't know if they're related or not, but that would be a huge coincidence if that were the case. But anyway, hopefully someone can tell me how to say it so I don't embarrass myself. But he was really good once again. Had a near pick. Just always around the football, has great range, good size. I think Petre is one of those guys that's going to flirt with early day 2 sort of ceiling, and a safety class that's not particularly deep or star-studded outside of Kyle Hamilton. So, CK22 asks in the chat, Winfrey has more burst than Mathis, but isn't Mathis a little bit bigger? I would say they're pretty comparable in size. I mean, Mathis is bigger, but I wouldn't say like significantly so. Mathis I think is a more polished player, but Winfrey's more athletic, and I think in an all-star event like this, Winfrey's athleticism is going to show more. So I'm not necessarily fading Mathis or anything like that, but I think Mathis is more of a high floor guy, whereas Winfrey's more of a high ceiling guy, and it just depends on what you need, what you want. I think they're both going to be very good day 2 picks on the interior defensive line, along with Travis Jones. Let's see. There was another. Let's see if I can go through my notes here, see if there's anyone else. I thought Romeo Dubes had a good rebound day. He was having trouble catching stuff yesterday. A lot of the receivers were. It was wet. It was windy. But Dubes had a better day today. He was able to catch a touchdown. So that was nice to see. I thought the quarterbacks in general in the early period looked more comfortable. I think this was Ritter's best day, definitely. He hit a few good throws. The inconsistencies were still there, but I think he had a better day. He had 2 back-to-back touchdowns where he sort of threaded the needle through traffic to hit Khalil Shakir in stride for a touchdown. Then he was able to break out of an almost sack and then dump it off to Rashad White quite skillfully, and then Rashad did the rest and took it into the end zone as well. So that was impressive. I thought Pickett had a decent day as well. I don't think Pickett ever had a bad day per se. I just think he wasn't impressive either. So that was good to see if you're a Pickett fan. And then I think Carson Strong again sort of had an up and down day. He missed some throws, he hit some throws. He scrambled he scrambled and it reminded me a lot of Matt Ryan, honestly, in that he's like very long and lanky and not a natural athlete, but that is someone to monitor as well. Strong has a lot of fans, certainly here in Mobile. Um, yeah, let's see. Corey Carter's asking about Bo Melton. Honestly, Bo has been they've been trying to find ways to get him involved. I certainly wouldn't say that he's been one of the more impressive guys here, but I do think that he had a better day today. I think I remember him catching a touchdown, or he's also been sort of used as like a Bo's been used as sort of like a short yardage dump off guy, a screen guy, and he showed off some good moves. He showed off some ability there. So not necessarily a standout, but he has made a couple good plays here. Let's see who else. Christian Watson, the North Dakota State receiver. I think overall Watson has had maybe the best Senior Bowl of any receiver all 3 days. It was a little bit quieter today. He did have a really nice play where he hit a comeback route for a huge gain that I thought was really well executed by him. So that was always nice to see. I think he's probably someone who's helped his stock maybe more than anyone else in terms of the wide receivers. So definitely someone to watch. I actually didn't see. I know Corey asked about Alec Pierce. Alec Pierce has been fine. I thought he had some good reps earlier in the week. I didn't see him today at all. So it's possible he either pulled out for some reason or was hurt. And we haven't necessarily heard when that's happened, but I didn't see him. So I didn't see Pierce today, so can't necessarily comment on how he would have looked. I was hoping to continue to see him look good. Jerome Ford has been good too. Jerome Ford is I wouldn't say like he's been one of the top standouts, but I think he certainly looks like he belongs at the Senior Bowl. He's been decisive. I think earlier in the week he had several good runs, so definitely someone that that's improved their stock this week. Another guy who's been generating a lot of hype that I hadn't really watched at all before the Senior Bowl was linebacker Sterling Weatherford from Miami, Ohio. He's big. He was sticky in coverage against tight ends. He had a pass breakup. He had a tipped pass. I mean, he was sort of all over the field. I saw him get some pressure over the last few days as well as sort of a blitzer, and they even dropped him down to edge a little bit. So he's another guy sort of like Darian Beavers, who's kind of a bigger, more traditional linebacker that might offer you some flexibility in terms of where you can play him. So I certainly that's a guy to watch there. Let's see. Yeah, if you guys have questions, I'll try to get to as many in the chat as I can. Obviously, if you're interested in donating, the fundraiser is still going. This is the last day to donate if you'd like to do so. We are 96% of the way there. You guys have been so generous. It's been really awesome, really appreciated. It's really helped make this trip a reality, and I think going forward with your support, I'll be able to do this every year. I'm hoping to rely upon it less and less going forward. Fingers crossed, but certainly very much appreciated everything you guys have done so far. And I know I missed Ray's donation from last show because of all the technical issues, so I'll make sure to get to that as well. Let's see. Yeah, I know. Let's see. Micah G from Germany. What's up, man? Welcome. Love Germany. Love German food. We actually ate at a beer garden in Mobile last night. They claimed they were, somehow German related, but I've never had legit German food, so, I would, probably have you be the judge of that. But certainly, if it was imitation German food, it was quite good. So, but yeah, Micah asks, how much money did Jermaine Johnson make himself? Is he in the tier with Ajabo and Karlaftis? I would say yes, definitely. Jermaine Johnson actually didn't practice today. Some people said it was because he was injured. Some people said it was because he just didn't need to do anything else. I tend to agree with the latter, regardless of whether he was injured or not. He could have stubbed his big toe or something. I would have not bothered practicing if I was him. He was the best player at the Senior Bowl, bar none. I mean, he was that dominant, that special. And it's something I've remarked on this show before, was that every game I watched of him as the season went on, he looked quicker. He looked faster to process. He looked like he had more range, played with more passion. And it culminated here in Mobile, where he looked more bursty than I'd ever seen on film against a really high level of competition. He converted speed to power and bull rushed guys. He used his hands well. He played the run well. He pass rushed well. He was the best pass rusher here. He did everything. He checked every box. He looked the part. He looked like a great athlete. He certainly measured in well. So to me, he's absolutely in that tier behind the top two guys now. Now, if you want to say you like Karlaftis better because you like his size, or you like Ajabo better because you like his ceiling and his Jermaine Johnson has tremendous burst. Don't get me wrong. Ajabo has elite burst. So if you want to bank on, the ceiling of Ajabo and you like that better, that's totally fine. I think, to me personally, I was already sort of considering this just because I'm a little bit lower on Ajabo. Again, haven't finished his eval yet, but I'm just wary of guys that need a lot of development in it, and because in Atlanta they really are going to be depending on this draft pick. If they take someone at 8, they're going to be depending on this guy to be their number one pass rusher, and I don't know that that's fair to Ajabo to make him do that day one. I think Jermaine Johnson is much better equipped to come in and be that guy. He's one of the smartest players I've scouted, period, this year. He doesn't make mistakes. He has advanced technique. He does everything you could ask. He can play all 3 downs without an issue. So yes, I think at this time I would have Jermaine Johnson as my edge 3 or 4. I'm not sure that I'm putting Johnson over Karlaftis yet. I haven't finished Karlaftis yet either. I think that Johnson is a better fit for the Falcons defense than Karlaftis. Not that Karlaftis can't do the 3-4 outside linebacker thing, but I think Karlaftis is probably more of an inside-outside guy in this scheme, whereas Johnson's more your prototypical 3-4 outside linebacker. So it just depends on what sort of flavor they're looking for. But I think as a traditional edge guy in this defense, I think Jermaine Johnson's probably the one I would go for as my edge 3. I don't know if that's how they will grade out at this point, but in terms of grading on a scale for the Falcons, I would not be shocked if Jermaine Johnson is the 3rd edge on their board behind, Thibodeau, Hutchinson, however you have those guys stacked up. But again, not going to argue with anyone that likes Ajabo better or Karlaftis better. I think I was already kind of leaning towards putting Johnson maybe above Ajabo, but we'll see. We'll see how Ajabo does at the combine. Because if Ajabo tests out of this world, that's going to push him up too. So Johnson, best player at the Senior Bowl, bar none. From any team, any position, doesn't matter. Other guys that I really liked from the second practice, because again, Jermaine Johnson didn't practice, but the big standouts I put down in my notes, again on deep, we'll start with defense. Sam Williams, the edge rusher from Ole Miss, he's been turning it on a little bit. I was interested in watching him more after the first couple days, and then today he really turned it on. I think he was the most impressive defender on the American side. I think Kingsley Enagbare also had another good day, but in the interest of moving on, quarterback 481. I think that's what it says. It says 481. Yeah, sorry, it's hard to read. It's a little small. Apologies. So Sam Williams was awesome. Had a couple of sacks. Chased down Sam Howell when he was trying to scramble. He's a guy that I think really helped himself, or as the week went on, he got better and better. So he's certainly someone to monitor on day 2. D'Angelo Malone from Western Kentucky, that was a guy that was sort of, a day 3 dude. I think he impressed a lot of people here. He was impressive again today. He's super fast, not huge, certainly not a big dude, doesn't have tremendous length, but he has a pass rush plan. He hits it, and he's got moves. So that with his speed, he did a nice speed to power conversion too that I was impressed with, where he bull rushed a guy that clearly wasn't ready for it, because this is a dude that generally tries to run around you. So I think D'Angelo Malone is definitely someone to keep an eye on early day 3, late day 2, if he does end up rising up to that range. But he was another big standout from today. there were two linebackers I liked. Weatherford was one. Channing Tindall from Georgia actually had his best day today as well. He had like a near pick in the end zone. He had some good pass rush reps. He had some good run defense reps. So Tyndall as a day three, target, I like that. I think he can be, a solid NFL player. Good special teamer and reserve at worst. So I think Tyndall helped himself today. Zachary Carter's been good all week too. On the topic of trying to talk about some different players, I had Carter early in the week as like a big standout, and I think he continued to play well. Same thing with like Kingsley Enagbare, who behind Jermaine Johnson, I think Enagbare is probably the number 2 pass rusher. But Sam Williams really came on strong today to sort of challenge for that, and I was very impressed. In terms of offense, I think some people were even higher on Calvin Austin's week than I was. I think Calvin Austin had, one of the top 5 certainly weeks in terms of the receiving core. I think in terms of particularly the American squad, Calvin Austin was the most impressive receiver. They had him line up all over the place. He showed off some wicked routes. He has great hands. He can be a short yardage dump off guy. He can be a deep threat. He can do intermediate stuff. If this dude was 6'2", 200, he'd be like a top 10 pick. But he's 5'7", 170. He's undersized. But I think as like a wide receiver 3 type that can do a lot for you. You can do gadget stuff. You can do short yardage. You can do deep stuff. He's going to be a great complement to what you have. I think Calvin Austin is someone the Falcons absolutely should consider, and I think he had one of the best weeks of anyone here. Let's see. At running back, Dameon Pierce from Florida, he had the best week of any running back. He was consistently the best guy. He was a great runner. He was physical. He was decisive. He had some great bursts to kind of get to the second level and get out of there. He had some pretty impressive reps as a receiver. They kept throwing it to him deep. He would create separation on linebackers. You could tell he wasn't necessarily used to going deep and catching. He has some ball tracking issues in terms of like actually hauling in those deep passes, but he was getting open. And I don't think it's like he has bad hands thing. I think he's just not used to tracking it over his shoulder. So, a lot of people here were, Florida fans or who follow Florida, and they just sort of constantly remarked on how he was underutilized there. He was not properly used as a receiver or as a runner, and he has I think he has under 400 carries in his entire career. So that's someone that is maybe even lifting themselves into that late day 2 range, but certainly a guy that could have a much better pro career than he did in college. The other guy I had circled today was tight end Isaiah Likely out of Coastal Carolina, a guy that I had sort of hoped would be a little bit more flashy. Had a slow start to the week. Finally was able to connect on some deep throws today. Finally was able to get into the end zone. And he had a bounce back day. I think he had a strong day today. So I was a big fan of him. He's a guy that's more of a receiving type of tight end. They had him blocking a little bit. It wasn't great, but someone that I definitely liked to watch, and he did a good job. The other tight end that I would throw out there, honestly, there were 2 tight ends from the American squad that pretty consistently impressed. One is someone I've talked about before, UCLA's Greg Dulcich or something like that. Dulcich was awesome. He would look like maybe the best tight end there. I think Trey McBride also had a pretty good week. Jeremy Ruckert got, I guess, mildly injured and pulled out, so there wasn't any Ruckert today either. But between Trey McBride and Greg Dulcich, I think those were the 2 best tight ends here. Also, a guy I haven't watched at all that had a good week was Grant Dellinger, I think was his name. Dellinger was able to get in for a touchdown. I think he's the San Diego State tight end. He looked like a solid blocker. He was able to create separation. He was doing a good job. So, props to him for impressing. And then from the quarterback core, I'll say it. In terms of biggest riser from where maybe the perception was before the Senior Bowl to after. Malik Willis, hands down. He's been the best quarterback here. He's looked very comfortable going into this sort of pro style event, this all-star game, working with all these new receivers. He's been the quarterback that's maybe been the most willing to rip it downfield. And from all accounts, he's been the most impressive in interviews as well. The hype train's leaving the station on Malik Willis. I believe I actually did a mock like in week 8 where I had the Falcons taking Willis like in the top 10, and that we went away from that because his stock sort of faded a little bit because he didn't have the best season at Liberty, and Liberty certainly didn't do him any favors in terms of in terms of crafting an NFL offense around him or helping him improve in the eyes of NFL scouts. They did not help him. In that way, he had a hill to climb here. Going into this event as a guy, who's not necessarily as pro ready or had the sort of NFL coaching that he has. He's really impressed, and I would not be shocked at all if he's quarterback 1 consensus now. Because Pickett didn't really impress. I think Pickett was fine. I don't think he did anything to hurt his stock, but he was always, I think, going to struggle to sort of keep up with the shine of someone like a Malik Willis. I had thought that maybe Desmond Ridder, if he had a good week, could have been the guy to get that shine. I would say Ridder had a pretty mediocre week. He had a good day today, but the rest of the week was not great. So Willis is sort of the one that's really capitalized on that. And I'll just say it. Don't be shocked to see Willis to the Falcons hype at 8. Don't be shocked to see it in mocks. You'll probably see it in a mock from me. And I think regardless of whether the Falcons are actually interested in Willis or not, because I think they would be fools to not be interested. I don't know if they're actually going to draft him. They need to, just like last year, they need to sort of play the game of they want teams to think they're interested in a quarterback because I think with Terry Fontenot, unlike Thomas Dimitroff, a trade down is always on the table, and I think they're trying to set the table for that, just like they did last year. They didn't end up trading down from 8 last year, but I think if the offer had been good enough, they would have considered it. I think especially this year, I think it's unlikely that Kyle Hamilton's there at 8. The Kyle Pitts player in this draft is Kyle Hamilton, so if he's not there at 8, and you're down the top 2 offensive tackles, you're down the top 2 edge guys, maybe it's a corner, maybe it's someone like Jermaine Johnson who's now rising up the board for you. But I think at that point you're probably working the phones. And if teams think that you're interested in a quarterback, the offers are better. And they have to play it carefully. It can work out in a lot of different ways, but I think the Falcons being at 8 is sort of an ideal position because if teams do pass, on quarterbacks, earlier, and the guy's still available later that the Falcons want, I think that they will be able to get trade offers for that guy. The hype has been certainly that Pittsburgh is super in on him. It's been to the point where like Pittsburgh scouts are commenting on it because it's so obvious that they love him. So hold on one second. I think I'm gonna get a guest in here for you guys. Same guy we had on here earlier in the week, Tyler Fornes, to talk about his takes, but I know he loves Willis too, so this is a good time. Yeah, but like I was saying, like if Pittsburgh wants to get Malik Willis, they have to get up above Denver more than likely. If Denver doesn't get up there, if Denver doesn't, trade for Aaron Rodgers or whatever, and they have to worry about, getting in front of teams like Washington, getting in front of teams like Cleveland. So there's, any of these teams in the teens could potentially go after a high ceiling quarterback. So you have to be that could be a great situation for the Falcons if a bidding war sort of ensues, and they could benefit from that. We got Corey Carr with the $9. Thank you so much, Corey. He says, want to make sure you get home, so here's $9. What about these guys? Charlie Kolar, Mike Rose, Max Mitchell, and do you think there's any chance we could get 2 of the 4 from Cook, Robinson Jr., Ford, and Walker? Yeah, let me break that down real quick. Hold on a second. I like Charlie Kolar. He hasn't been especially productive this week. I think Charlie Kolar's thing is that he's not he doesn't work himself open in a way that presents itself in this sort of environment. Kolar's more of an average, maybe even below average athlete, but Kolar wins that you just chuck it up and he gets the ball as an emergency outlet, as a short yardage guy. I think he can be a good blocker. I like Kolar a lot. He actually did beat a linebacker deep and almost caught it, but it was way overthrown, just sort of airmailed. That would have been a touchdown, one of the highlights of his week, certainly. But I do like Kolar a lot. Mike Rose, I don't know, but Max Mitchell struggled here. Not that matters too much. He was going against some pretty tough competition, but that's certainly someone that could be an option later. I think James Cook, he did pull out of the Senior Bowl, so we didn't get to see him. I was pretty bummed about that, but certainly he's an option. I assume you're talking about Jerome Ford. I would like him as well. So those two would be probably the ones I would lean towards out of that group. Obviously, Trey. I don't know if you're talking about Trayvon or Quay Walker, but both of those guys I would like to see in red and black, certainly. All right. Let me get Tyler in here again. Welcome back, Tyler. How you doing, man? Can you hear me? Let me make sure. Hold on. No, you can hear me, guys. Can you hear me, Tyler?
I can't hear you, man. Give me 1 second.
Okay. Tyler, can you hear me? Make sure you're unmuted, because it's reading that my audio is coming through. I know you guys can hear me, so we'll figure it out. But all right. Send message. But yeah, while we're waiting, I think the guys I would lean towards would be Trayvon Walker or Quay Walker, whoever you're talking about. I think those are two guys.
Can you hear me, Kevin?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. How you doing?
Good. All right, we're all set. It's nowhere near the technical difficulties I was having last night, so I literally had to. It crashed 4 times. The internet was so bad. So glad it's at least been working so far tonight. But yeah, Tyler, we were just talking about. I know you're a big Malik Willis fan. We were just. I was just telling people, to get ready for the Malik Willis in the top 10 hype. It's back in force. But I know you know a lot about Willis and you really love his game. So talk to me a little bit. Explain to the people why they should respect Willis as a legit top 10 prospect in this class.
I think you need to respect Willis as a legit top 10 prospect because he has every trait you could want from a physical standpoint. He's a dynamite runner. He has an absolute piss missile for an arm. The ball pops out of his hand. It's a true rocket launcher. And he is able to make throws basically without any kind of mechanical base. He can just make them because he's Malik Willis. His arm's absolutely remarkable. And when you take that into consideration, once you really get a base underneath him and help him learn how to play the position from a technical standpoint, you're talking about a guy who could be a top 5 quarterback in the National Football League. I wrote a piece for the Vikings Wire, which when you're done listening to this, I highly recommend you go read, comparing why people are going to compare him trajectory-wise to Josh Allen. And how that can be beneficial and successful in the National Football League.
Yeah.
I think Malik Willis is just as raw. They have very similar backgrounds as far as what college dealt them. And you have to have a coaching staff that is comfortable enough to be able to get him to work within structure without taking away what makes him special. Playing hero ball with that offense, which has no NFL talent on it, he is remarkably special. And he can make incredible throws to all levels of the field with that pitch missile.
Yeah.
And you have to give him time. You have to be patient. But as he continues to learn the position, as he continues to grow within the confines of the offense itself, he can win the game running the football. And I think that's the difference between him and a lot of other players, because he can beat you early with the run and then continue to grow as a passer.
Yeah, maybe a pass catcher too. Get some Philly special plays going. But
I like it.
I wouldn't put it past him. But yeah, I mean, I just think that there was this sort of perception that, like, because his final year at Liberty was bad, that he couldn't possibly be, a top 10 quarterback again. And I think that, like we were hearing that the Steelers are like all in on him. That's like the worst kept secret of Senior Bowl, is that the Steelers are obsessed with Malik Willis. And I'm sure they're not the only team, because I think other teams maybe are a little bit more tight-lipped about it than Pittsburgh. But I think he's someone that, people need to start really expecting to go higher than maybe they thought. Whether you think he's a good pick for the Falcons or not, folks, like that's your opinion. But in terms of whether it's possible, you should definitely prepare yourself for that, because there's a non-zero chance the Falcons just scoop him up if he's there at 8. He was that impressive this week, and that's sort of the vibe that I think we've gotten from people we talked to as well, that he was that impressive in terms of the scouting community as a whole. So any of the other quarterbacks that you liked this week? I mean, it wasn't a great week in general for the quarterbacks other than Willis, but anyone else that you thought had a decent to good performance?
I thought Bailey Zappi showed himself really well. He played at Houston Baptist in 2020. And then 2021, he went to Western Kentucky. His head coach, Zach Kitsley, ended up becoming the offensive coordinator for the Hilltoppers. And now he's going to Texas Tech, which should make that offense really fun with Donovan Smith and Tyler Shuck. That'll be a lot of fun to watch. But Zappi himself, on film, he doesn't have the best arm in the world. Yeah, you can just tell it's capable. He's not going to be able to drive the ball like a Carson Strong or Malik Willis or even a Sam Howell. But what he's able to do and how he's able to make these throws to the outside, which are incredibly difficult, throwing those speed outs, throwing those corners, he is able to fit them in really tight windows and even up the seam as well. Being able to do all of those things make a really nice impact for Zappi, and it helps him overcome his lack of traditional arm strength. He does need to really improve over the middle of the field. Harry does not prioritize the middle of the field at all. He felt very uncomfortable with it, but he kind of grew with that concept after a couple practices. And the arm was requisite. It was good enough. So you get him in an offense that prioritizes structure, that prioritizes reads, progressions, checks. Bailey Zappi can be a starting quarterback in the National Football League. I don't know if he's going to have a high enough ceiling for you to value him at a spot where you want him to be your true franchise guy. Mm-hmm. But I really like what Zappi brings to the table. And at the very worst, the absolute worst, he's going to be a backup like a Gus Frupp that's going to be able to come in and win you 3-4 games a year when your starter's hurt.
Yeah, I agree. I thought that the big thing for me, and I think for a lot of scouts, was just to see, like, does he look out of place? Does he fit in with these other guys that are sort of flirting with day one, or early day two consideration? And I think, yes, like, I think he looked like he belonged with these guys. And to me, that was important. I thought he acquitted himself well. He certainly didn't look out of place in this group. Today, obviously, we had to watch the game on the practices on TV, so that was a little bit difficult. But were there any other players to you? I mean, I know we've talked about Khalil Shakir and Calvin Austin and all kinds of guys, but were there anyone in particular that you came away from today especially impressed with?
I was really impressed with Daniel Bellinger, the tight end from San Diego State. Blocking guy. I did not really see him as being a standout in Mobile, but every time I saw him, he was consistent. He was making plays. He was a very good blocker. He caught the ball very well, always had his hands extended away from his body, just a hand catcher. And he was running routes well enough to create separation. I think Bellinger can be a really good tight end too in the National Football League. And I was not expecting to come away with that kind of take. But he was very impressive. And I'm going to have to go get me some San Diego State tape and watch. Because he, outside of Rucker and McBride, I think he was the best tight end in Mobile. Cole Turner was incredibly disappointing. Charlie Kohler is kind of meh, but he was
he didn't get targeted a lot. Yeah.
No. Yeah, he was a lot less stiff than I thought he was going to be. So that was a benefit for him. But Bellinger was just really impressive. And he's just a stalwart kind of guy. Nothing over the top special, not a high traits player, but just good. Yeah. And sometimes just good in the middle rounds is all right.
Real lunch pail guy, blue collar, hard worker. No, he did have a good week.
Dulcich, pure grit.
Yeah, pure gritty guy. Greg Dulcich was another tight end that I liked, the UCLA guy. He caught a lot. He caught a couple passes from Willis downfield. Those two looked like they had a little bit of a connection, and I was enjoying him. To me, like a guy like Calvin Austin the third, I think really helped himself this week. We talked about Christian Watson before, but Watson's obviously been great. On the defensive side, obviously Jermaine Johnson was a standout. He didn't practice today. Any of the defensive guys that you came away from today really impressed with?
I thought Sterling Weatherford from Miami of Ohio was really good. Kind of a linebacker safety hybrid. They utilized him more in linebacker drills than they did on the back end. But he was very sticky in coverage, had a really nice pass breakup in the end zone. And having talked to a lot of people who have watched a ton of Weatherford, they said that this is a very normal thing. So I'm very excited to look at his tape as well. I thought Weatherford showed himself very well to be able to move with these top flight SEC backs going against Dameon Pierce, going against the Utah kid, TJ, I can't remember his last name. But
no, me neither. I can't say it. Yeah, it's hard.
It starts with a P.
Yeah.
It's like Pledger, I think, maybe?
Yeah, Pledger, I think, yeah.
He was able to keep up with those guys and play very good football. And that was really nice. The Georgia Tech kid, Tariq Campbell, I think is what it was. Tariq Carpenter.
Yeah, Carpenter.
Carpenter was fantastic today. He was dominating in the pass rush drills against running backs. He was just he annihilated a couple guys. Run fits were fantastic all week. Really showed himself to be a good pass defender. I really thought that he was somebody who could make a big splash in the National Football League. And he was a really late add. He was a Hula Bowl guy, added late last week to the roster due to injuries. I think he took Devin Lloyd's spot.
Yeah.
But he was advertised coming in as a safety, but he did a lot of linebacker stuff. So I'm very interested to see what kind of role he plays in the NFL. Is he playing a Budda Baker? Is he playing a traditional linebacker? A chess piece? What are we talking about here? So, but I came away very impressed with Carpenter.
Yeah, that's a good one for sure. I liked him too. I haven't watched any of his tape really, so that's definitely a guy that I have to go back and look at. Let's see. I'm trying to think of any positions that we haven't covered. I mean, is Perry Winfrey still the best interior guy this week in your opinion, or is there somebody else that's taken that top spot?
Oh, Perry and Winfrey. Oh my gosh, he was
so good.
He was an animal. Yeah. An absolute freaking animal. I think Logan Hall had the best flashes. Mm-hmm. Perry and Winfrey was far and away the most consistent. I came away with Logan Hall probably being my favorite prospect out of this group. 6'5" and 7/8, 278.
Yeah.
And he's dominating and winning on the inside with length and strength. I don't know what he's going to be at the next level, but he's a guy I want to bet on. And 2 years ago, I was incredibly high on Jason Strowbridge, so maybe I just have a thing for those tweener guys that just wreak havoc. But that defensive line group is just really, really talented. Boye and Mafe, after kind of some struggles on day one, had two really good back-to-back days. Falcons fans, look at Danielle Hunter's testing numbers. Boy and Mate is going to resemble that. He's already has an official recorded 40.5-inch vertical. I heard that he recorded a 43-inch vertical in workouts. This guy is an athletic monster, and he is learning how to really emphasize pass rush moves, and he's going to come out of this more defined than what Hunter was. He's got elite level upside. This group overall was just fantastic. The offensive line group had a lot of struggles, but they also dominated. They did, but it wasn't embarrassing. A lot of them really back-to-back reps. First rep they get destroyed. Second rep they come back and perform better. They were just the most inconsistent group in Mobile this week. And Trevor Penning was just a violent monster.
Yes, he was a good he was carrying it for the offensive line.
Darian Kennard was really good. Matt Ladasco, or I can't remember how you pronounce it, but the North Dakota kid showed himself to be a good player. That was really cool. The Fordham kid had a couple good reps after an atrocious first day.
Yeah, that first day was rough, but he came back and he played well. He played better.
He really did. The defensive line group stole the show, and it was far and away the best group of the week.
Yeah. Well, I know you got to take off soon. Is there any other takes you want to let fly before you got to go?
Yeah, let Falcons fans think on this. If you're concerned about Carson Strong in the pocket, go back and watch late 1980s Dan Marino and how he slides and avoids pressure, and it doesn't matter that he can't run and scramble. That's Carson Strong. So if your team ends up drafting him, don't panic. It's okay.
Yeah, I know you're a big Carson Strong guy. I know that there are some Falcons fans that like him too, and it seems sort of like pocket passers have lost a little bit of shine recently, with the sort of new wave of these athletic guys coming in. But, I think Strong is a good player. He didn't have the best week in Mobile, but it wasn't bad by any stretch. So definitely a name to watch. But, yeah, Tyler, thank you so much for coming on, making time. I know you got other shows going on. But, yeah, guys, you can follow Tyler at The Real Forno. He works for NBC Sports Edge. He also it's Vikings Wire, right? Is the other site?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So definitely check his stuff out. Learned a lot from him this week, and we'll continue to do so, I'm sure. But Tyler, anything else you want to plug before you sign off?
Go Gators!
All right. Well, yeah, man. You can you can hang out as long as you want, or if you need to take off, feel free. But
well, I'll take off in a second. For Falcons fans, I know I mentioned it earlier. Go to my Twitter profile, the pinned tweet, read about Malik Willis and why he resembles Josh Allen as far as a trajectory purpose. It'll help ease your mind a little bit and really paint a picture on how to get to a point where he can be an elite level quarterback.
Yeah, and that's what I try to tell people is that it's all about ceiling for Atlanta, because you got Matt Ryan, who can give you a good floor for a long time. I mean, probably 3 to 4 more years, he's going to be an average or better NFL starting quarterback. But you don't need a high floor guy. You need a high ceiling guy that can upgrade Ryan potentially, which is why I think taking a stab on someone like a Malik Willis is much more likely to be the direction they go as opposed to a safer guy. So, yeah. Well, thanks again, Tyler. Have a great night. I will talk to you later, man.
Absolutely. Take care. We'll do this soon.
All right, man. Have a good night.
You too.
Yeah, guys, that's Tyler Forno. Or, well, that's his handle is at The Real Forno, but it's Tyler Fornes, who I met here in Mobile. Real fun guy to talk to. Definitely check out his stuff. Definitely knows his stuff about quarterbacks more than me. I sort of eye scout and gut scout with quarterbacks. I wouldn't claim to be a quarterback guru or someone who understands the real intricacies of the position, but he's very knowledgeable at it. So I would definitely consider his opinions on quarterbacks maybe a little higher than mine. He's not a fan of Desmond Ridder, so I was willing. I was man enough to argue with him about Desmond Ridder, but I think the Falcons taking a quarterback is something that you should keep on your radar. I don't think it's a guarantee. I don't know that it's even the most likely thing to happen, but I just want you guys to realize that it's possible and that it's something they're going to consider, and I think they're smart to consider one way or another. Yeah, guys, I know we had a couple tips from Tyler Russell with the $10. He says, "Keep up the great Senior Bowl coverage. Thanks for everything, Tyler. Thank you so." All right, I think we're good. We're back. We're back. We're back. Everybody relax. I'm getting too close to the sun here. It had behaved all night. To be fair to the internet, it had behaved all night until tonight. So that means we probably got to wrap up soon to keep it from falling apart. But Micah G also with the $10. Thank you so much, Micah. Really appreciate that, man. Micah, yeah, I know you put your questions in the chat already. Um, so maybe that you just yeah. So I'll answer. I think I answered the first one. Let me make sure I get the second one. How about Zaquandre White and Devontae Price in terms of running backs? I thought Devontae Price was pretty impressive. I actually didn't see him today. I don't know what was going on with that. They've been very tight-lipped about like guys pulling out with injuries. They announce the guys that replace them. They don't announce who leaves. Since I wasn't at practice, I wasn't able to really get the scoop on it. But I thought Devontae Price was good. I enjoyed watching him. He has great long speed. He looked decisive. He looked quick with his cuts. He looks like a good sized guy too. So I like Devontae Price. That's definitely someone I'm going to circle to watch his tape because I hadn't really seen him at all before Mobile. But yeah, I liked Price. I would say Zaquandre Wright was fine. I didn't think that he had a bad week. Certainly, he didn't really like stand out in the way that Damian Price and Rashad White did. I think he had a solid week. I think he actually showed some good stuff in terms of his footwork, in terms of his decisions, and the offensive line kind of let him down. And I don't blame him for that. I think he's a good running back. I just it wasn't really a great Senior Bowl week for him. More of just like a so-so week. Not a problem, not a big deal, but yeah, guys, we'll take it the full hours. We got about 5 more minutes. If you guys have questions, obviously you're welcome to donate. You can throw them in the chat. I will try to get to as many as I can. I know we have a lot coming in. And again, just appreciate you guys hanging out. We'll see how long the stream cooperates. Hopefully it will continue for a few more minutes. But Tyler Russell asked about the favorite offensive line and wide receiver options. I haven't really talked about the offensive line, guys. We did talk about receiver a bit. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the offensive line, guys, Tyler mentioned it, but Trevor Penning has sort of far and away been the best offensive lineman here. In a week where the defensive line sort of just controlled everything and just kind of shut down the offense for most of the week. Trevor Penning was the one guy that kind of fought back. He was fighting for the offensive line's honor. He was a nasty dude. There were a lot of defensive linemen trying to pick a fight with him today in particular. I think he was starting to get on people's nerves because he would just try to pancake guys in one-on-one reps, and I don't think they appreciated that. But as someone who enjoys the physical edge to football to that extent, I think it's a little bit silly, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. I like his attitude, and I think Trevor Penning is absolutely someone the Falcons should consider in terms of an offensive lineman. He's played right tackle. He can play right tackle very well. So that's someone I like. Obviously, Darian Kennard, I think, is one of the other big standouts. A lot of scouts think he's best on the interior. He played tackle here, too. He looked good. So he's definitely someone that I liked. Corey's asking about Calvin Austin. Can he return punts or kicks? I saw they actually had him back returning kicks at practice. He only got a chance to return one or two. I don't think he actually did in college. I'll pull it up real quick because I'm actually curious about that myself. But I don't actually think he was a guy that they relied on to return. But he does have the skill set that I think he could be good at it. Let's see. Okay, he did return 20 punts in 2020. He did score a punt. Okay, so he has actually 2 punt return touchdowns. So he can return. That's the answer. He can return punts. He averaged 27 yards per punt return in 2021 on 5 returns. That's pretty impressive. And 9.4 yards per punt return on 20 returns in 2020. Didn't necessarily get a ton of volume in terms of punt returns, but he scored two touchdowns on only 25 returns. That's pretty good. It's pretty good. So I think that Calvin Austin is a guy that's gonna have a, like you're saying, Corey. Like he's a guy that you're gonna need to find a way to get involved. But I think he showed here. He matched up with some guys. He was really good at releasing off the line and keeping guys from getting hands on him. Um, he was pretty lethal with his cuts, with his elusiveness. He's got good long speed. He was burning guys deep. He's someone that has to win with separation deep because he doesn't really have the traditional sort of big big frame that he can go up and win contested deep catches, but I liked him there. I love Calvin Austin. I think that it's possible. His stock could go all over the place because you see a guy like Tutu Atwell. A lot of people were like, oh, he's going to go day 3 because of his size. Ends up going in the second round. So I don't know where Austin's going to get drafted. I sort of feel like he's a complimentary guy that the Falcons are going to probably be interested in getting like early on day 3. So if he's there, I would absolutely take him. But I don't know if he'll make it that far, honestly. But I would love it if it were to happen. Lanny Gums, as well as iWin58, Amir, asking about DBs that I liked. Yeah, I think Jalen Pitre from Baylor, the safety, he was like the best safety here. He was very good. Had like a bunch of had I think 1 or 2 picks. Also had several near picks, pass breakups, sort of all around the ball. I liked him a lot. The cornerback class on the American roster was just damn good. There was just so many guys that you could list off. Today, Darian Kendrick had a pretty good rep that I really enjoyed. Let's see. Yeah, Roger McCreary was great, as expected. He measured in a little bit smaller than people were sort of expecting, so there's a chance he could slide because of that, and I would not hesitate to take him in the second round. That would be a total steal. Let's see if there were any other corners I can remember. Mario Goodrich from Clemson. I think he had a great week. Not necessarily a bunch of flashy reps in terms of like picks or anything like that, but I think he played really tight coverage and was just generally a good player. So I think as a day 2 corner, Goodrich is definitely someone to keep an eye on. Someone that really helped himself. Who was the other guy? The Tennessee corner was quite good. What was his last name? You guys probably know who I'm talking about. It's not a Caleb Evans. He's the guy from Missouri, but the Tennessee cornerback. Hold on, let me find it. I finally got a paper roster, and now I can't find anyone. Yeah, Alontae Taylor is the guy. I know a lot of you guys were fans of Taylor. Taylor had a great week. He showed his blitzing ability on Wednesday. He had a couple unblocked sacks. He looked really quick, decisive as a blitzer. Looked really good in coverage. Had a near pick. Definitely a guy that I like a lot. So, Alontae Taylor is definitely someone to consider on day 2 as well. Corey Carter, we'll do this as the last one. Coming out of this week, who would you take in the first from what you saw? So I guess assuming, somebody being there at 8 and they stay at 8. Yeah, like if I had to pick somebody at 8 right now, in terms of who I think is likely to be there, and everything, like obviously my number 1 player is Kyle Hamilton. So if Kyle Hamilton's there, you take Kyle Hamilton. Kyle Hamilton's not there. I think that the offensive, obviously Aiden Hutchinson, Kayvon Thibodeau, they would be picks, but they're not going to be there. Evan Neal and Kem Kwanu would be the next guys. They're not going to be there either. So you're probably trying to decide between like Charles Cross, George Karlaftis, Jermaine Johnson, David Ajabo, the corners like Andrew Booth, Sauce Gardner. You notice I didn't say Derek Stingley. It's because I'm not interested in Stingley at 8. Maybe that's a hot take to some of you, but talking with a lot of other scouts here, and this is going to be a quick blurb on this, but talking with a lot of scouts here, I thought I was sort of an outlier in that I was not super impressed with Stingley and was sort of low on him. I think the scouting community as a whole is actually lower on Stingley than sort of the fans are. And that's not meant as a slight at the fans. Stingley hasn't had good tape in 2 years, and I'm just not in on that at 8. Especially when you've got Andrew Booth, who's just an elite do-it-all corner, and you got Sauce, who's tremendous size and just plays his game extremely well. I think those two guys are better prospects right now, and I would take those guys over him. So to me, it's, one of those guys is the one I would look at. Right now, recency bias and all, I'm leaning Jermaine Johnson, honestly. I think Jermaine Johnson is super pro ready. I think he can come in and get you 6 to 8 sacks immediately. Which maybe doesn't sound like a lot, but as a rookie, that's a good rookie year, and I think he's a guy that has a 10-plus sack ceiling. The Falcons missed on Brian Burns, and I don't think Jermaine Johnson's as bendy as Burns was. He's bigger and stronger, and I think Johnson's actually a little bit smarter, like more refined as a pass rusher too coming out. He's kind of sort of where Burns has become. Burns has certainly developed into a much more technically refined rusher. I think Johnson is really good. I think he's a top 10 pick. I think he may end up as a top 10 player on my board. We'll see. Maybe not that high in terms of grade, but I think for what the Falcons need and how good he has looked and honestly how he's improved since the beginning of this season, where he came to Florida State, whole new defense, whole new system, everything. It took him a little while to get started, but put up elite production and got better every single week, and it culminated in the All-Star week for the ages. He was the best player at the Senior Bowl. So we know the Falcons care about the Senior Bowl. They drafted 4 players from the Senior Bowl last year. It would not shock me at all if they really value this sort of tape and Johnson being the best player here, basically. And do decide to pull the trigger on him at 8. I think that I hope that they consider a trade down. I'm not going to say they need to do it or they have to, but I think they'll be looking long and hard at a trade down. But if they can't get the trade down and they're sticking at 8 right now, my pick is Jermaine Johnson. That's where I'm going to lean on that one. But yeah, there's certainly a lot to consider there. There's a lot of picks, a lot of ways it could go, but that's where I'm leaning at this time. Yeah, guys. Well, again, really appreciate everyone who donated. There were so many people that did. We did reach the goal tonight. It was the last night, so cut it a little bit close. No, I'm just kidding. I just really appreciate the support. It's really touching. It's really cool to run into people here in Mobile that love the show. And that's a lot to do with you guys. Your views, your retweets, you guys getting the word out about the show has helped turn it into what it is today, and that's really helped elevate my career as well. So I really appreciate that. I want you guys to know that. I appreciate the support. It's just really touching. So thank you. And I'm looking forward to continuing the coverage, obviously. Next week, we'll be doing more free agency stuff, more draft stuff. Probably going to focus a bit more on free agency over the next month, just because that's coming up fast. And I need to sort of do more of that stuff. So I promise we'll have more actual videos on the channel, not just live. I've put it off all year basically because I was so pissed off at Game Pass for being shit that I didn't do any game recaps. I was also, not that enthused about the Falcons game rewatching and that sort of thing too. So, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But free agency stuff, I'll definitely break down the free agents and everything else. And we'll get started on that next week. And we'll go from there. But again, thank you guys so much. It's been a great Senior Bowl. We still have the game, but as this scouting community says, nobody cares about the game. So look for my written recap of today's practice tomorrow on the Falcoholic. And yeah, again, really appreciate you guys, everything you did. We will be back on Wednesday next week at our usual time, new time of 8 p.m. Eastern, to sort of recap everything with some hindsight involved and sort of pivot towards free agency, which is coming up real quick. So for me, guys, I'm Kevin Knight, Falcoholic Kevin. Again, really appreciate everything. Like I said, if you missed any of the recaps or any of the other shows, I think last night's Spaces, which is what we had to pivot to because the freaking internet was not cooperating, that just went up on the podcast feed tonight. So if you haven't had a chance to listen to yesterday's recap, that is now available. Also, the written recap is on the site now, and then day 3's recap will be coming out tomorrow morning. So look for that. But otherwise, guys, thanks so much. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Those help us out. Leave a comment, whatever. Check out the Patreon page. Patreon.com/Falcoholic Live. And I think that's all the plugs I got. Definitely out of breath. So thank you guys so much. Have a great night. Enjoy the rest of your week, the rest of your weekend. Senior Bowl almost in the rearview mirror now after the game, and then the Super Bowl will be right after that. So then we'll be putting the 2021 season in the rearview mirror, which I know Falcons fans probably pretty eager to do that. So have a great night, guys. I will talk to you next week on the Falcoholic Live, and also stay tuned for more clips because I have a lot of clips. We'll just say that from yesterday. So I'm honestly probably only 25% of the way through the clips right now. So I'll keep uploading those when I have time. Yeah, we'll go from there, guys. But have a great night. I will talk to you next week. See ya.